When I was in London last, my sister said, is it like when you see movies where a huge decision needs your life to change? Sloan here. I decided to become a wedding planner well into my 40s after deciding that corporate wasn't for me. It was a difficult decision, but I knew it had to be something enriching and fun for me. I walked away from my accounting job to just be a receptionist at this small wedding planning company. This all started off great. I was a high-performing and happy worker. It actually took me 2 days of working with Dorian to realize he was something other than a friend. I considered myself a pretty good guy, so why did he seem to despise me so much? I was polite and courteous, I really did, but that was it. He had a description about him of attitudes so remote, yet he harassed me relentlessly for my job. I retreated to the only peace that was at home with family. Thankfully, they were rather understanding of my career shift. Our dad had cancer and spent much time in the hospital, yet he would remind me constantly how proud he was of my fight for his dream. My family was in pain, but they were there for me, and never stopped my motivation. A few years went by. A recent graduate named Alara was added to the team. It was simple for her to be friends with Dorian. I was happy to have a new coworker, though I did feel odd about her in general. I know her cheerful persona and never-ending streams of conversation may have agitated me a good deal. After a while, I started to see a difference with Dorian coming from Alara. He would praise her work and hand over something else while I was all but invisible. That was infuriating to think that somebody who had just barely started was already receiving accolades when, for months, I had been grinding away, and nobody even noticed. Still, to this day, I never surrendered. I had the potential to become a good wedding planner, and I would not let anyone erase that belief. I was a hard-working girl with abilities to bloom and still flourish. It was 3 months later. I had just started the new job too, and then my dad called to tell me that one day he woke up in the hospital. I knew it was coming, but the news hit me like a ton of bricks. My family and I were all in a bad way, so we took some time to come together as well. Yet I would have to tell Dorian, and he was not going to like this. I sprinted to his office and exclaimed that nothing worked. I could tell that Dorian was none too pleased to hear my sudden declaration that I needed a few days off when it was only 48 hours away. But what could he do? Someone's father had died. I seethed with anger and hated that he could not relate. I kept my composure and asked myself what emotion was driving me. I had a few days of unpaid leave from work and went with my family to the funeral. A sad and emotional day, though I was grateful for my family with me. A few days later, most of my stuff had been taken while I was working. "Ilara, where are my things?" To which she responded, I had been fired. The only thing was that I was completely confused and heartbroken. I was aggravated. What? No heads up to crank back the speed or give a reason. I stormed into Dorian's office. My anger and confusion were off the charts. "Sir, could we please talk?" she said. "I am fired." "Yes, Sloan, you have all the things you need to bring. We have prepared for a person like you so that they can leave today." What? I thought I had heard too much. Unbelievable. Then he fired me as soon as I took a day off, steaming with rage and ready for a fight. "I'm sorry." What? The day my father died, you fired me? Unbelievable. "Sloan, I am sorry, but we are going to have to do what's best for the business." "What are you talking about?" "I hit all my targets as far back as I can remember for this company. You can tell that you have been procrastinating recently." "That's not true. There is evidence that I have done the job. If you have ever done work on the platforms, they save every progress. I never once missed a deadline, nor did I ever fail to deliver on tasks. Where do you think you kept any records of that stuff, Sloan?" In my work laptop. I have it right here. So I wiped it out. Are you for real right now? Would you please pack your bags and go? No more. So you were trying to kill me. Is that correct? So what if I was? Not that you could do anything about it. Why is HR actually listening to this phone call? Am I on? What? You think I'm stupid enough to come into this place without a record? I grabbed a voice recorder from my pocket and presented it to him. Even I was not fooled and realized that something really horrible was wrong. It could only be Dorian with so much advance warning. I heard him panic and ease the tone as quickly as humanly possible. Sloane, great job. We all knew nothing. This was a test. We just wanted to check in on this because of what went down with your family. We were a little worried about the impact it might have had on the work you are doing. That's dumb. Of course it does. All right, I will give you a promotion opportunity. 2 glad meanings of promotion. I knew this was just a cop-out, but I accepted Dorian's excuse. I thought this promotion was the perfect thing, the silver bullet that would help me fast-track my career. I would probably find another job and run as soon as I achieved the lowest rank in Dorian. I walked that conversation off again, just back to work, breathing easier a bit more into myself again. However, after a few days, I felt there was some error. Work was isolating me, and I didn't know why. I could feel myself becoming an outsider, and it was beginning to show in my work. One lunch break, Alara was talking to some of my coworkers about me. You realize Sloane was only blackmailing our boss, right? I heard her talking to him the other day. I'm going to expose all contacts of this company if he is not going to promote me, she said. When she saw me coming, she very quickly shushed her talking. I heard the whole thing from behind a curtain. She smiled at me with her usual innocent smile, as if she was so fond of me. Well, I smiled back politely, finally realizing why they had all shunned me. No matter how I tried to explain everything, it was as good as done. I watched as my coworkers all backed further away from me. They apparently had a lot of trust in Alara. No one was enthusiastic about my project ideas, and they would always take Alara's side. Now I had to. But my promotion was no good to me because nobody would let me lead them in any project. I was really bummed, but there was no turning back now. I tried even harder and hoped that maybe one day I would be able to win my coworkers over with such fresh ideas. I'd even worked an hour early to make sure I was always ahead of the game and ready for work. Except I found out a dark secret. I walked into the office that day to find Alara coming out of Dorian's office, looking really rough, her hair and clothes crumpled. That explained everything. All of a sudden, Alara had only put up with Dorian because she was his mistress. He was probably trying to fire me to promote her in the first place. Their behaviors were so disgusting to me. Alara was even engaged to another man, and she always talked about how much she wanted a big fancy wedding in the fall. So many thoughts were passing through my head at that moment that I almost forgot to hide behind the wall. Luckily, Alara was so arrogant that she wasn't even trying to be careful. She walked straight to the bathroom, unaware that I might have just discovered her biggest secret. Days after that, Alara approached me again with such a fake smile. "Egg Sloane, do you have some time? I want to ask you for a favor." "How can I help you?" "Oh, you know how Cale and I are engaged, right? I talked to you about him, my high school sweetheart." "Yep, I remember." "Right, so we were hoping that you could help us plan our wedding." "Oh, you want me to plan it? Why?" "Well, I've noticed how you haven't had any good ideas lately, and Dorian isn't happy with your progress. I thought you could use some help." "You want to help me?" "Yeah, we could help each other. You could do my wedding for free, and I could put in a good word for you. You know Dorian is quite happy with my work, He might even give me a promotion. I knew that calculated girl was just trying to make me plan her wedding for free. I was really mad at her and her audacity to ask. She'd been working hard while all she did was take advantage of others. Almost immediately, I knew what to do about the situation. I had to correct the record. I decided to assist Alara with her wedding planning so she could carry on secretly plotting. One thing was for certain. I came to the realization that Dorian and Alara saw each other every morning an hour or so before business hours. She soon agreed to let me plan her wedding, and even mentioned Cale, her poor fiancé. I even confessed to Alara how dearly her happiness was important to me, and that I would put in a night shift just the day before to ensure everything went perfectly. Alara was more than happy. Oh, she loved it when a few people just did what they were told. The next day, she handed over the spare keys for every room in her company. And of course, she was Dorian's mistress, so she had the key to Dorian's office. What she didn't know was that perhaps in the process, she gave me a key to unlocking her darkest secrets. The next time I planned a shift to meet Cale at work, when Dorian and Alara would be there, I made sure to keep this a little secret for the bride. That was my surprise, too. I had known what I wanted to happen when Cale and I arrived at the company that day, and true enough, we could hear Alara laughing along with Dorian. Cale looked at her skeptically, but remained silent. I reached serenely into my bag and extracted the key to Dorian's office. The moment that door opened, everything came to light. Cale was too stunned to even reply. With that, he took off and left the office. Alara freaked out, scrambled for her clothes, and chased after him, calling his name frantically, her eyes welled up with tears. But I did not pity her. I did feel sorry for Cale, but he had a right to the truth about his own partner. Beside him, Dorian was attempting to pull his trousers back up and making an awful effort at talking me around. "Sloane, please don't say anything about this." "You know what, Dorian? This company is doing terrible because of you. You have this fried. My life is so full of doing all this nonsense." "Oh, come now. I'll raise your salary." "Yeah, a promotion today." "What do you say?" "No, Dorian. I have worked for it, but only because succeeding in one's own soul is a form of success. I'll bring this to HR. Dorian assumed telling me to change my mind wouldn't work. He showed his true colors. "Do you have any proof?" "Not one bad thing Alara could ever possibly say about me. They all hate you. Literally, nobody will listen to you, Dorian. You're so naive. Don't you remember the last time Dorian had not answered me? By the time I left for the grumble away from my judgmental mentor, I had the voice recorder in my pocket as an immature way of telling myself that when it came to dealing with a man like Dorian, I needed evidence. I then forwarded HR the recordings of Dorian saying to me he was gone as soon as they found out he seduced me outside of my job and even hired one office girl to sleep with. He only made choices that brought loose to the company, satisfying his personal whims. Meanwhile, Alara quit her job not long after, and Alara left the scene thereafter in humiliation. My coworkers got to know about it soon. All of them then came and apologized for their behavior with me. I never blamed them, but also made a counter to let them know that my ideals were something serious, and that at the office, Dorian should show some professionalism. Shortly after that, people started to pay attention when I said something and wanted me on their projects. I eventually got the promotion I deserved. Otherwise, I would not be in my happy place doing all of the gorgeous couple ceremonies that are booked with me throughout 2019. Who will get married next year? That makes me so proud of myself, and I know that my dad will be very happy with what I have done.